Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Teresa from In Place of War. Welcome to the panel around art space, social transformation. So today we're going to be joined by different artists from around the world who have been using different forms of creativity to create positive social change in their communities. All of these communities have one thing in common, that they have been affected by conflict in diverse forms. And these people are participants on an academic project at the University of Manchester and the University of Durham called The Art of Peace, which looks at arts-based peace building, or how people are making positive social transformation through the arts in communities that have been affected by conflict.
So the purpose of that project is to bring artists together with academics, combine academic reflections with grassroots initiatives and activism, and really try to help figure out how art can be given a platform to be the biggest kind of change maker it can be in a society, and also look comparatively across societies what it means to consider art as an actor for peace.
Okay, so we're going to watch some presentations by the artists who are going to talk about their work and a little bit about the context in which they operate. Please feel free to write questions in the chat because we'll have a live discussion afterwards after watching the films.
And
Bonjour, je m'appelle Precy Numbi, performeur artiviste congolaise. Mon art se base dans les domaines de recyclage des déchets, que ce soit immatériel et matériel. Je travaille par analogie entre ce que la société jette et mes propres symptômes, où j'invite les spectateurs de se refléter dans mon travail et voire même d'interagir avec. Mon travail artistique fait une narrative entre l'art et la politique je me suis engagé après mes études à l'Académie des Beaux-Arts, avant de poursuivre un parcours expérimental à Goma, où je me suis engagé sur le respect des droits humains en étant un moyen de dénonciation, de plaidoyer et de prévention. Mon regard performatif est vraiment de gester sur les espaces urbains en fait de permettre à tout le monde, que ce soit la communauté et des élites, de se retrouver dans un point et trouver des solutions rationnelles à nos différents problèmes. Et ma source d'inspiration pour le travail, c'est l'Est du Congo, une zone meurtrière par des conflits, mais protégée par la pollution.
My name is Ronald Panza, and I am a member of Youth Culture Center Abrašević from Mostar. Youth Culture Center Abrašević is a youth culture center that inherited, or better said, included in a long tradition of its famous predecessor, Worker Culture Center Abrašević, the culture center of the same name. It is located in Šantićeva Street, which is one of the most urban pedestrian zones and also one of the most beautiful streets in the city. Today, it is a space that has its own polyvalent hall. Having proven itself in various activists' actions, the center continues with numerous responsible workshops of social and artistic form, organizing festivals, concerts, cinema screenings, exhibitions, and participating in a social life, connecting people as a kind of bridge on the land. Thus, today's city of Mostar is divided into two smaller cities that inhabit the two shores of the city almost equally. The western part of the city is considered a Croat Catholic part, while the eastern part is Bosniak or Muslim majority. Before the war, there was no such division, no border, no structure. We are often mentioned as a divided city, and indeed, the fictitious border has been drawn, which follows the former war border of separation, and it is a war result. So, today there is no border crossings, no barricades, no surveillance, and no conflict. However, it is important to understand that this border has not generated physical violence and conflicts for 20 years. Quite the opposite. Mostar is a fairly peaceful city today. But this did not happen simply by reconciling and creating a new life together. It happened because everything in the city divided. Everything in the city doubled in some manner. But what we also have is certainly a lack of democracy and democratic processes. We in Abrašović have been trying for 20 years to provide space for people from all sides for free expression, and in that, above all, through our existing work, we have succeeded and continue to succeed. As part of the Art for Peace project, I am working on the city's sound archive, recording its most important topics, especially those related to everyday life, recording the stories and the atmosphere. I produce at least one sound story every month, and my intention is to cover as many topics as possible and make about 20 stories come true. I work also on Abrašović radio, and as an artist, I usually deal with sound in various forms and formats. I am equally engaged in research, listening and collecting sounds from nature, those that were not created by specific human intervention, but I also compose small radio documentary forms. These sound recordings are made using documentary techniques. The topics are familiar to me in advance and are set in a certain order of events, and I try to influence the people, events, and sounds as little as possible. The goal is to capture and shape a moment of real and social time in its authenticity. After the completion of the material collection process, the assembly of the material will be started several times for at least 20 to 30 minutes until it reaches the objective level. After that, we will put together a chronological archive that will be available to the public, both online and in the appropriate museum space. Thank you.
Hi, this is Farah from Laban, a theater-based organization located in Beirut, Lebanon. Laban is an improvisational theater-based organization that works on creating safe spaces for individuals and communities across Lebanon to express themselves and for us to be able to create change and create impact in different areas targeting different communities across the country. This is our beautiful team, a team of 20 men and women from different backgrounds, different age groups, different interests that we call civil actors, because we believe that everyone has an artist within, everyone is a social activist within. So if we bring those out, we will have the perfect citizen that can actually create change. What we do is a lot of work, actually. We started 12 years ago now, and we got registered in 2009 in Lebanon. Our main activity, and we are very well known because of our playback theater work. Playback theater is an art form where audience members share stories, real life stories, and see them enacted on the spot, in front of them, expressed through the bodies of the actors and the music of the musicians, and everything is played on the spot. Playback theater is a very powerful tool because it helps create community. It creates empathy. it gives the other a voice. In a country full of conflict and where every community is segregated completely from the other, we have differences on different level, and every difference is used as a tool to create more and more conflict. So playback theater comes to create bridges between these communities. We've done playback theater between refugees and host communities. When I say refugees, in the case of Lebanon, I mean internally displaced people from one area to another, Syrian refugees, Palestinian refugees, Armenian refugees, everyone. Our playback theater had been a very powerful tool for us. It's the most powerful tool, actually. We've targeted youth who were at the edge of terrorism, taking part in the war in Syria, joining extremist parties like ISIS and others. And through playback theater, we could actually save lives. We had few of these young men leave the weapon behind and rejoin the community and try to reintegrate themselves into the society. Also, through playback theater, we've built bridges between Syrian women and Lebanese women living in marginalized areas where racism takes place and the worst possible shapes, especially among women. So through playback theater, we could help them establish a more coherent community, be more supportive of each other, find more commonalities between their daily struggles. Another tool that we use, forum theater. Forum theater is a form from the theater of the oppressed. It's an art form where we present a short play of 10 to 15 minutes that represents a social issue, a social problem, in which we have a very clear oppressed character. And then we invite audience members to come on the stage and to actually enact the change, enact their proposition towards a better life or a better situation, to create change, not only to think about it, or because from our own seats as audience, we usually think things are easier than what they really are. We would assume that any problem can be solved easily, while in daily life, it's not as easy. So while playing the role of the oppressed, the oppressors, or other community members who are usually the observers of this problem, because we always talk about real life problems, understand and have a different angle or point of view about the issue. We've done theater of the oppressed, forum theater specifically on the kafala system. The kafala system in Lebanon is a horrible system. It's the new the new kind of slavery. It's a new slavery. It's not new. It's pure slavery, more or less, where migrant workers coming from different countries who come to work in the household, come to be house helpers, are enslaved, more or less. Their passports are taken away. They have no proper rights, and they don't fall under the law of labor. So in one of our plays, the kafala system, we were targeting the kafala system, and we could actually raise awareness on that topic and let the people understand that this human being who came here to work, to be able to provide a better future for their own families back at home, are human beings. Also, we've done forum theater on sensitive topics such as marital rape, such as harassment, sexual harassment, violence against women, acceptance, and so on. These are very, very, very relevant topics to our community. For example, harassment is a very common topic. And when we've done that play, I recall young man university students, male students who came on stage to play the role of the woman, of the girl who was harassed or hit on by other men. How they couldn't believe or imagine how hard is the situation for this oppressed woman to be proactive, to actually take action towards stopping this, because it's systematical. Oppression is systematical. Improv theater, which is our starting point, we started from improvisational theater. We do improvisational theater on monthly basis. We have open performances for the audience, and we have different forms that we created, and we take pride in that. Mainly our goal from improv theater is more entertaining than actually being socially active and socially engaged, yet it is socially engaged. After the revolution in Lebanon, we created a format that we call impolitical, which is improv and political at the same time. And in this form, we put on stage the actual rhetoric of the street, the revolution talk, what people want to see and what people are talking about, that you cannot put in a scripted place, especially in Lebanon that we have censorship on theater. In an improvisational play, we have the luxury of running away from censorship, so we can say whatever we want. We created a space, which is our studio. We call Studio Laban. It's a black box that is on the rooftop of an old building of Beirut. And in this studio, we host underground artists, all artists that believe in art as a tool for social change, to express, to perform. We also host performances. We have a monthly playback performance that we call Your Stories on Stage, and we invite people to attend and to watch for free. It's an open free performance to share stories. It's a very nice place that is highly appreciated by the community members. Then we are part of a community, and in Lebanon we are going through a lot, and I imagine you have a little bit of an idea about our financial crisis, the revolution, the explosion that took place on the 4th of August, the collective trauma and the reviving of a trauma of a civil war that was never closed and it's still unhealed. Our theater took place to react to that, to be engaged in that. I remember on the first few days of the revolution, the team was on the streets, and a woman came to us telling us that thank you. And we were shocked, like, why is she thanking us? And she said, thank you because you created this. And she was talking about the most beautiful moment of the history of Lebanon, the revolution. And we said, us, like, how? She said, through your theater, you made us realize that we have a voice that must be heard, that we deserve a better future. And here we are looking for a better future. Unfortunately, after a year, we didn't reach that better future, but we still have hope. And after the explosion, we decided that we will not die. We will not surrender for that. We will actually go back to the theater. We are actually preparing for several projects. We already started our response to the explosion of the 4th of August, and we are sure that we will create change.
Hola amigos, mi nombre es Róbinson Úsuga Henao, soy habitante de Medellín, Colombia. Soy periodista, soy escritor y soy artista visual. Nací y crecí en la Comuna 13 de Medellín, una comuna de la ciudad que ha estado envuelta en conflictos, en violencias y en guerra urbana. Cuando estudiaba periodismo en la Universidad de Antioquia, tuve que vivir la guerra. Perdí algunos amigos a causa del fuego cruzado y todo el tiempo tenía miedo. Por eso, mi trabajo de grado, para aspirar al título de periodista, una serie de crónicas sobre víctimas de la guerra en la Comuna 13. Esta serie de crónicas con las que finalmente me gradué se llama Muerte bajo la lluvia de Orión. Resulta que en el año 2010 publicó estas crónicas en internet en el sitio lluviadeorion.com, y así se dan a conocer al público estas crónicas. No busqué que fueran un libro como tal, sino que busqué otra alternativa, explorar un poco las nuevas tecnologías, y así nace inicialmente Lluvia de Orión, como una serie de crónicas publicadas en Internet. En el año 2011, ganó una convocatoria del Museo Casa de la Memoria de Medellín para crear, o digamos, ganó una convocatoria Lluvia de Orión como un proyecto comunitario de memoria, porque como ustedes pueden ver, esta serie de crónicas fueron ilustradas por jóvenes de la Comuna 13. Entonces fueron mis crónicas, pero desde el principio busqué que fuera un proyecto social y participativo. Entonces, al ganar el premio del Museo Casa de la Memoria, me dan algunos recursos para que siguiera trabajando en este proyecto de las crónicas y de la memoria. Y ahí es donde surge la idea de crear un portal periodístico que desarrollara herramientas para la pedagogía de la memoria dirigida a jóvenes de la ciudad de Medellín y de Colombia en general. Cómo hablarles a los jóvenes sobre la importancia de la memoria del conflicto armado, sobre la importancia de hacer memoria. Es ahí donde me doy cuenta que para llegar a los jóvenes, aunque yo soy escritor, debo salirme un poco de mi rol como escritor, porque los jóvenes en Colombia no leen mucho, leen poco. Es ahí donde pienso que este proyecto de memoria para jóvenes debe tener un lenguaje juvenil, un lenguaje que sea atractivo para los jóvenes, y es en ese momento que empiezo a desarrollar cortometrajes animados de masacres ocurridas en Antioquia. Antioquia es la región donde se sitúa el municipio de Medellín. Realizo los primeros cortometrajes animados, por ejemplo, Una noche en Villatina es uno de esos cortometrajes. Aquí pueden ver algo sobre ese cortometraje, elaborado en la técnica de plastilina. Este cortometraje lo hice en el año 2012. Con el tiempo me doy cuenta que el proyecto de los cortometrajes animados, si bien es atractivo e interesante, no encuentro quien apoye esta iniciativa, y la realización de animación es costosa. En Colombia no se invierte mucho dinero en los temas de memoria y menos de pedagogía de la memoria para los jóvenes. Entonces, digamos que empiezo como un proceso de crisis con mi proyecto Lluvia de Orión, y de todas maneras, aún así, empiezo a realizar talleres en algunos colegios de Medellín, donde iba a esos colegios y les daba una charla a los jóvenes sobre la importancia de la memoria y sobre la importancia de hacer memoria sobre el conflicto armado colombiano, para que los jóvenes transformen esa realidad y logremos que Colombia sea un país más pacífico. Como les dije antes, Lluvia de Orión entró en crisis, el proyecto estaba creciendo, tenía, digamos, una perspectiva interesante, pero no tenía recursos para funcionar. Entonces, se nos ocurrió en Lluvia de Orión, en el equipo de trabajo que fui creando con el tiempo, se nos ocurrió empezar a prestar servicios a organizaciones que trabajaran temas sociales. Lo que les propusimos fue hacer herramientas desde la educomunicación para la pedagogía de temas sociales, y empezamos a hacer cartillas y videos. Cuando empezamos a hacer cartillas y videos, ahora sí, gracias a esos servicios que prestamos, empezamos a obtener unos recursos para que el proyecto se mantuviera. Estas son algunas de las cartillas que hemos realizado en Lluvia de Orión. Luego de hacer las cartillas y videos para universidades y organizaciones no gubernamentales en la ciudad de Medellín y en Colombia, nos dimos cuenta que era súper importante volver al territorio de la Comuna 13 y buscar tener una sede en este territorio y seguir trabajando con jóvenes de la Comuna 13. Entonces, todavía no tenemos una sede, pero hemos hecho trabajo de talleres enfocados en la memoria, pero también en el emprendimiento creativo, porque nos dimos cuenta que para trabajar memoria con los jóvenes, si bien esto era importante, también debíamos ofrecerles una perspectiva de futuro. Entonces, además de memoria, en los talleres que brindamos en la Comuna 13 de Medellín a los jóvenes, están los temas de escritura creativa, los temas de dibujo e ilustración, el tema de clases de fotografía, el tema de animación stop motion, y también está el tema de emprendimiento social y creativo, porque queremos que los jóvenes aprendan del pasado, pero que también piensen en construirse un futuro, y a través de Lluvia Orion brindarles herramientas para que lo puedan hacer a través del libre ejercicio de su creatividad. Durante la pandemia del COVID-19, gracias al apoyo que tuvimos por parte de In Place of War, creamos un proyecto de préstamo de computadores de manera gratuita a jóvenes de la Comuna 13 que tenían dificultades para seguir con sus estudios escolares y para conectarse a sus clases virtuales porque no tenían un computador ni acceso a internet. Estamos mirando cómo crecemos este proyecto, porque Lluvia Orion, además de ser un proyecto de memoria que hace herramientas para la pedagogía de la memoria, es un proyecto que brindar apoyo, conocimiento y herramientas para los jóvenes de la Comuna 13 de Medellín en particular, y para los jóvenes de la ciudad de Medellín en general. Ahora estamos esperando que la pandemia del COVID-19 sea superada para poder lograr tener una sede en la Comuna 13 de Medellín. ¿Qué queremos hacer en esa sede? Queremos convertirla en un centro de historias animadas, de producción en animación, producción de audiovisuales y producción para que los jóvenes realicen cortometrajes animados de historias que tengan que ver con la Comuna 13, de historias que tengan que ver con sus familias y con historias que tengan que ver con la construcción de sus proyectos de vida. Entonces, eso será la sede de Lluvia Orion en la Comuna 13 de Medellín, un centro de producción audiovisual centrado en la animación stop motion y en la construcción de cortometrajes animados de historias del conflicto armado y de historias sobre los temas que les gustan a los jóvenes de la Comuna 13. Queremos, a través de la animación, capacitar a los jóvenes con los que trabajamos, porque la animación es una gran industria que genera trabajo a nivel mundial y también en Colombia. Entonces queremos capacitarlos en la creación de historias animadas, como lo hemos venido haciendo hasta el momento en Lluvia de Orión.
Thanks for 4 amazing presentations from 4 different grassroots change makers, different places of the world: Colombia, the former Yugoslavia, Lebanon, and the DR Congo. Really inspiring to hear these very different relations between art and grassroots activism that you have. And please remember that during this discussion, all of you can use the chat room in the audience to send questions directly to us, and we'll make sure that your questions will reach the artists. We'll try to answer as many questions as possible that you might have for all of the participants, or just one individual of our speakers. And that goes for you as well. Ustedes también pueden hacer preguntas a uno al otro. Precy, toi aussi, tu peux poser des questions pour les autres artistes aussi, si tu en as, parce qu'on veut seulement entamer une discussion. We would like to promote, of course, the discussion. So, Teresa, I don't know how you feel about it. I have some really questions, that really burning questions that I would really like to ask all of the panelists. But maybe you want to go first?
Yeah, so I have a question for Ronald. You were talking about these sound stories in a sound archive. What do you hope to achieve with this sound archive?
Oh, yeah. The sound archive is an actually attempt to artistical research and record current stories and problems that are present now in the city of Mostar. First, I decided to write down everything we talk about, think about and hope for. At the same time, in addition to the obviously form of the language, which is a special feature for itself of the archive, these stories at the same time an artistic statement individually. So they are not mere information. Obviously, it's not information or simply document. In them, I try to combine a documentary sound of the atmosphere, field recording, which is basically unique because in every kind of documents and documentary, you got some kind of just information and debatable content. In this short documentary feature, which is wholly particularly its space for itself, is some kind of combining techniques with sound listening and the memory of the stories itself. Okay, let's cut short of space and atmosphere. I always hope to find some authentic sound. These sounds, especially because they're hidden today, and due to widespread sound, urban pollution, etc. Actually, I don't influence speakers by giving them numerous instructions or setting them up. I simply prepare myself studiously enough to get to know them, their problems and stories, their topics, and then record them spontaneously. Imagine the camera, video camera, instead the sound recorder. This creates something new that is both a dynamic form of life and a memory content itself at the same moment. Yeah, I totally think about this.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And what kind of things do people kind of talk about? What kind of things have you captured? Because you said everyday life, but what is everyday life like in Mostar? Because that might be very different to our everyday lives in all these places.
The archive actually is the project, is still in current phase of development. And we have passed on a third of its duration. And in a way, all these topics are related to the situation created by the foretold division, okay? Mm-hmm. Each of the people in the city has everything they need on their side of the city. And because of that, there is no more classic public space. There's no more classic public space stories. Of course, people move freely, but most live, work, go to school, learn to meet, socialize, have fun in their part of town. Okay. Going to the other shore is frequent, but not necessary. Very much related to the individual occasional needs. We no longer actually and practically live together because we supposedly don't need each other, okay? However, in practice, it is not so. There are more and more examples of ordinary, responsible people from all sides addressing these problems that concern us all. The city is practically divided, but the administration is not. And that problem and topics is like basic topics like issues of garbage collection and disposal, cleaning on our main Neretva River, maintenance of public areas, quality of everyday life in general, cultural education, some kind of the topics for the people with disabilities, the people who lose the members of their family in the war, etc., etc. This is the main topics. The all archive is very dramatic and is very intense. I think that it's going to be rich and powerful at the end.
Okay, thanks. That's really interesting.
Okay, thanks. So I think that this really leads me to another question that I have for another panelist. So Precy, I will ask the question first in English so that the audience catches on. I think your presentation was really fascinating, the way you speak about actually ruination and using waste in your work. So could you tell us a little bit more about the kind of social change that that you hope to see through your work, and what would you how does it resonate with youth that is interested in doing social activism? So now I'll just pose the question in French to Precy. Alors, Precy, quand on t'écoute présenter juste tout à l'heure, oui, on voit que tu travailles beaucoup avec les conditions actuelles au Congo, mais quel est le changement que tu espères en fait voir réalisé à travers de ton travail? Et comment est-ce que ça résonne avec la jeunesse au Congo?
Ouais, du coup, moi déjà, les liens avec mon travail et ce qui me motive, c'est plus d'abord un vécu. C'est d'abord mon vécu et par rapport à mon regard social, parce que mon travail est basé dans les regards, c'est les regards. C'est là qu'ils trouvent un peu les différentes pistes pour parler du social, pour parler de la politique, pour parler de l'environnement. Mais moi, mon art déjà, je travaille avec des récipes des objets que je récupère dans les riz et dans les différentes poubelles. Donc, je travaille avec des objets délaissés que le monde peut consommer, mais en courte durée, comme les objets électroniques et surtout automobiles qui m'intéressent plus dans mon travail.
Just a petit moment pour que je traduise. Precy is explaining that his work is really rooted in his own lived experience, both his social lived experience, but also political lived experience, and also rooted in the direct environment. And he likes to work with something which you might call the objet trouvé, but which are actually waste items which have a very short lifespan in their proper use, become for Precy vehicles of expression of these conditions that he finds himself.
Oui, je peux continuer. Déjà, c'est l'automobile qui joue vraiment un rôle influent dans mon travail parce que l'idée, c'était un peu de démontrer cette forme de l'importation de voitures qui ne pourraient plus marcher en Europe, si on peut le dire. Bon, c'est pas seulement en Europe. Donc, les voitures qui ne pourra pas avoir une utilité rationnelle de sa source de provenance et qui crée encore une autre vie dans ma très cher pays, bon, qui est le Congo, mais je pense que les cas, c'est vraiment, ça marginalise un peu la grande partie de l'Afrique, toutes ces voitures d'importation. Et à travers cette regard des voitures, ces voitures créent des accidents un peu brisqués au Congo, surtout moi, je suis grandi à Kinshasa dans un quartier un peu populaire. J'ai rencontré à tout moment des accidents. Et Kinshasa, il fait chaud et on remarquait que la température commençait à augmenter parce que toutes ces voitures dégageaient une chaleur absolue et même avec les fumées, tu sens vraiment une sensation toxique qui n'aidait pas vraiment les gens à bien.
Permettez-moi de traduire. So Precy is explaining that in particular, there's one object which he has worked with a lot, that's cars. Because actually Congo, just as many other places in Africa, is a kind of graveyard of cars which are considered not useful anymore, not applying to the rules, not conforming to the rules in Europe any longer, and they have an afterlife in Africa, where they are the kind of main vehicles actually through which people move around. This is just a reality that you see these zombie vehicles driving around in his native Kinshasa as well. And in Kinshasa, his own experience of living in a popular neighborhood was that these cars and the kind of toxic circulation of these cars in the world are also related to climate change. You can really, you can notice that not only the climate change they produce collectively across the world, but also the kind of heating up of Kinshasa itself and the kind of smoke which is of pollution levels higher than allowed in the global north, which really touches upon your lungs, and also the fact that these old cars, these wrecks actually also cause a lot of accidents and are very dangerous to life in Congo.
Et du coup, pour interpréter tous ces méfaits dans mon travail, l'idée, c'était d'utiliser les mêmes matières qui venaient de toutes ces voitures que j'ai retrouvées dans la rue, parce que déjà, retrouver une matière automobile dans la rue, c'est qu'il y a eu un accident, on connaît tous, c'est qu'il y a eu vraiment un accident. Et moi, c'est vraiment un moyen pour moi de rénover encore tous ces objets et les mettre en question à travers une forme qui est vraiment artistique. Au départ, je fais l'architecture aux Beaux-Arts de Kinshasa, mais à un moment de mon parcours, que je voulais vraiment me sentir un artiste libre, je me disais, je dois créer l'architecture sur mon propre corps. Et mon propre corps va refléter un personnage héroïque, parce que moi, déjà, dans les regards héroïques que j'ai, c'était un personnage qui est fort, qui est résistant, qui est incontournable, qui devait apparaître au moment où la communauté cherchait à des problèmes, qui n'avait pas la force pour les résoudre. Et c'est dans cette manière que j'ai recréé.
So automobiles became for Precy a kind of great object through which to engage critically with society, but also find his art. He was actually, I was a student at Beaux-Arts, he explains, of architecture, but I found that I wanted to express myself more fully through art. So all these kind of left behind pieces of cars, which you can find in the streets, which you can only find because there's so many accidents actually, I wanted to use them. And I thought that actually what society needs is something which is supernatural. We need actually a superhero to be able to deal the kind of massive problems that we have in Congo. So I decided to create out of this automobile wreckage, which is the kind of symptom of our place and time, to recreate a superhero. And the kind of architecture or the landscape on which I mold this kind of architecture is my own body.
Et c'est vraiment comme ça. Et je voulais vraiment amener cette regard artistique, que ce soit vraiment comme mon instrument de défense et comme mon instrument de sensibilisation et surtout comme un instrument de la résistance. Et la résistance, c'est à travers mes performances, parce que je mets mon corps en étant vraiment un instrument de communication en transportant 23 kilos et je pars au-delà. Déjà, j'amène un peu tout le monde de tirer l'attention à travers l'objet qui est mon corps, qui est l'art, parce que ça amène un peu des questions. Parfois, je me posais des questions à travers mon art, comment est-ce que je pourrais réunir le monde autour de moi et au-delà des langages, au-delà du genre, se retrouver vraiment dans un point qui pourra se poser des questions, qui pourra vraiment permettre les gens d'interagir. Et ce personnage, c'était vraiment un moyen pour moi de gester héroïque, parce que gester héroïque pour moi, c'est pas utiliser mon corps pour des violences ou ce que les gens pourraient penser. Bon, parfois, on se retrouve devant l'oppression. J'ai même des vidéos où je me bats avec des policiers parce qu'ils étaient un peu brutaux envers moi. Mais moi, l'idée, c'était vraiment de tirer l'attention. Déjà, ma personnage, si je pourrais exhiber sur la voie publique, je permets un peu tout le monde. Parfois, quand je fais mes performances, j'ai des in-city, j'ai des points que je mets déjà. Je sais que ces points ici, si je peux me retrouver là où il y a la pollution, je sais que ça sera mon point de chute, ça sera mon point de performance. Déjà, tout le monde qui est intéressé, tout le monde qui est attracté par l'innovation, il passe un peu le temps et de voir ce qui l'entoure. Moi, c'est ce qui m'intéresse. Déjà, je me posais la question, déjà, les déchets, c'est nous qui créons les déchets et c'est nous qui se plaignons pour les déchets. Et parfois, les déchets, on s'éloigne. Mais comment approcher encore le monde, de s'entourer autour des déchets et en discuter. Même les autorités aussi, parce que j'ai remarqué, surtout au Congo, on avait une influence qui était vraiment basée sur les personnages. Et ces personnages qui me dominaient, c'était aussi les personnages uniformes. La présence oppressive, c'était, on trouve plus la politique, on trouve plus l'armée. Et moi, je me disais, moi, ma forme unique, ça sera un moyen pour moi de résister encore plus pour dénoncer les différents problèmes et mettre mon art en valeur participative ou dans la valeur communautaire.
See. So Precy is explaining that his body is just not in wearing these kind of wreckages of cars and creating a kind of superhero out of it. His body is not only an instrument of defense, but it's also a kind of instrument of expression and resistance. It's a means of communication. He's carrying around 23 kilos, sometimes more, of parts of used cars that he combines in new ways. And he asks, how can I unite the world around me in a way that moves beyond language, to be able to ask questions, to be able to use heroic gestures, not in a violent way, even if sometimes one has to, faced with the kind of police violence and oppression that one faces in Congo when one criticizes in the public space the kind of normal ways to do and the kind of things as they are supposed to in this kind of public space there is. So he tries to make people aware of the kind of pollution. If he will find places where there's a lot of waste, a lot of circulation, this will be his point of reference, the kind of place in the public space where he will want to intervene. By through his kind of public displays, he will want to make people reflect on what surrounds them, the waste in a different way. Just making them stop and look at his work will make them look at this place around them and the kind of environment that they live in a kind of different way. So he wants to challenge people not to take distance from their waste as kind of ignore it, but to approach it, reflect on it, and even force the kind of the authorities, the police and the people in uniforms to do the same.
Et voilà, c'est un peu ça, mais il y a aussi la partie que je trouve un peu intéressant dans le travail, c'est la confiance en soi et comment trouver un moyen de sortir de la victimisation à travers ce qui nous entoure. Déjà, dans la confiance en soi, c'est pour tout un chacun d'avoir d'un point où lui-même sera le super-héros de lui-même avant de l'aide. Surtout pour le Congo, c'était vraiment une partie aussi qui m'animait plus parce qu'il y a tellement tant de problèmes et tous les problèmes, tu vas trouver, il y a la communauté qui criait toujours aux autorités de trouver des solutions. Il y avait même des gens qui n'arrivaient pas à enlever la poubelle devant leur porte. Ils criaient au nom des autorités. Et déjà, si moi, avec mon personnage, parce que c'est influent aussi, j'essaie de poser le premier acte, je pense que ça interpelle et c'est vraiment ma partie forte pour communiquer aussi avec la communauté. Mais j'aime aussi un peu plus travailler avec les jeunes. C'est le travail que je fais à l'Est du Congo avec les enfants défavorisés, de leur permettre un peu de voir le monde autrement, au-delà de la victimisation, mais utiliser les moyens créatifs et utiliser un peu la résistance comme un moyen de sortie. On crée des ateliers où les enfants essaient un peu d'utiliser les cartons en étant des objets de protection et en étant une matière pour eux de créer leur propre amir. Parce que leur propre amir, ça les permet un peu de faire un plaidoyer au-delà des langages, parce que si je pourrais organiser une équipe de 40, 50 enfants qui crée lui-même son costume et il sort sur l'endroit public avec des points où on le fait toujours les in-city, surtout le Congo. Je m'intéresse plus aux problèmes de l'Église, aux problèmes politiques. qui est la cause de beaucoup des enfants peut-être défavorisés et surtout la guerre. C'est vraiment mon moyen participatif avec la communauté. Et vraiment, je suis dans une démarche où l'idée, c'est de créer une république, de créer mon république où tout le monde doit jouer son rôle.
Thanks, merci Precy. Je vais traduire, c'est super intéressant. So I think that the final point I want to make is that the way I engage, that I want to engage with the world is by emphasizing confidence in oneself. So getting away from the victimization that is so rampant around us, especially in Congo. How can we work with development ourselves beyond looking for aid from the outside? There's always people crying for the authorities, for the bad roads, about the garbage that's in front of their door, but we can't rely on them for everything. So I want to people to look at themselves, and specifically here I look at youth and kids to try and see, can we get out of victimization by using creativity? Can we resist victimization as a kind of dominant discourse in the way that they look at themselves? So can I just put them to work with very concrete things like cardboard to create their own costumes, to plead for themselves on the social issues that they find important, get out in public space. And my goal is actually to bring on board as many of the kind of disfavored youth in Congo, and there are many, and to create my own republic in which everybody has its own place and in which everybody works out of confidence and resists the kind of forces that be. Teresa, you want to move on with another question?
Yeah, thanks for that, Percy. It was really interesting. Merci beaucoup. I have a question for Róbinson. So I'm going to ask it first of all in English for the audience, and then obviously in Spanish. So he talked a lot in his work about the topic of memory, and I want to know why he thinks that's important for young people in Medellín, in Colombia. Róbinson, hablaste durante la presentación sobre el tema de memoria y sobre todo el tema de memoria con los jóvenes. Y yo me gustaría saber por qué para ti es tan importante que los jóvenes en Medellín tratan este tema de memoria.
La razón de trabajar con jóvenes es porque en Colombia los jóvenes han sido protagonistas de la violencia y también han sido víctimas de la violencia en gran cantidad desde hace mucho tiempo. Y en ciudades como Medellín, donde en los 90 se vivió una violencia donde los jóvenes tuvieron gran protagonismo y aún tienen gran protagonismo a través de los grupos armados y de las bandas y las pandillas armadas. Entonces en los jóvenes también hay como, digamos, ellos tienen un papel importante en la construcción de paz, pero para que asuman ese papel debe haber una pedagogía que les hable un poco de las consecuencias del conflicto armado y incentivarles a ellos el camino de la no repetición y de la transformación hacia un país con una cultura de paz.
Okay. So Róbinson was explaining that youth violence, so youth in Medellín have been both the protagonists of violence, but also the victims of violence. And this was particularly acute in the 90s. So given this, he feels that it's really important that in kind of discussions about peace and building a new future, that young people are involved in this conversation of memory. So they kind of learn from the past in creating a new future and transforming the city. Pia, do you have a question for anybody else on the panel? We have a few coming in from the chat as well.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I'm dying to ask Farah some questions. So Farah, I mean, it sounds so amazing what you guys are doing, and I just wanted to follow up on the question of resistance, and not just resistance by you guys, but perhaps also what is the kind of resistance that you run up against in your work? Like, do authorities try to interfere in what you guys do? And how do you deal with that?
Well, honestly, no, authorities do not exist because, as far as you know, we've been living without a government for so long now. And when it's here, it's just an image. So, um, uh, but when you make theater in our country or any kind of art, you have to get a permission, and you undergo a censorship process, which is very complicated. So the art form we used, and because we are an organization and we are doing civil work, protect us from that. And because we are improvising, there is no way that they can censor what might come out, especially in playback performances where you give the people the space to speak and to share their own stories, their own narratives. uh, the government cannot censor this kind of work. In terms of resistance, we might face resistance from, for example, from the community based on the cultural sensitive situation, or limits that they try to impose on us. So sometimes we play along, but we manage always to deliver our message. So and especially after we kick off any performance, audience automatically feel that there is no boundaries between us and them, and they don't need to impress or to show any kind of value system that they hold really close to, because we don't present ourselves as the others, but a mirror for them to actually be able to reflect. So they start these boundaries starts to resolve, and you get to create actual connections. So resistance is always there, but there is always a way around it, especially with youth and with groups that are more closed or conservatives in a way or another. So art is always a good way to deal with such limitations.
Great. And I think that brings me quite naturally to my next question. So, how do you reach out to? I mean, theater is something which is really accepted, maybe among more progressive groups, but it seems that your mission is really also to reach out to more close groups or groups which might be at risk of radicalizing. How do you make that first move? How do you reach out to these people?
Sometimes we reach out to them, sometimes they reach out to us. It's always good to have someone that is an entry point, a key person. To begin with, we try to build a good relationship with the people. We don't come with agendas that are hidden. We don't come holding a flag saying that we own the truth and we are gonna make you better people, because we are not, obviously. So we come really in a very humble way. We are very open to listen. We are very empathetic, and you can actually feel when someone is really listening, and when someone is trying to pass on agendas and telling you how to behave and how to become a better citizen or a better human being, which is not possible in our cases. So if I was going to take the example of the extremist youth that we worked with and we performed for, we didn't go with an that is there, and part of it is real, part of it is very very real, because they took part in the war, they hold weapons and they tried to kill, and maybe they were physically involved in the war. Also with ex-fighters from the civil war, they were physically involved in the war, and some of them would share stories about them committing crimes against other human beings. But when we listen to them and when we embody their stories, trying to highlight their process of reconciliation, for example, for the fighters from the civil war, and for the youth who are victims of terrorism, we try to let them also see, and to also see the common line, the red thread that brings them all together into this big wave of terrorism. It's because they are victims themselves, and we try to shed light on their resources and their ability to actually voice the right they see, because when they go to war they believe that they are fighting for the right side, for the truth, for the correct people. But when they understand that war is never the answer, and that human beings are way more important than any value system. The human being comes on top of everything we believe in or they believe in. So we break this kind of ice or walls by empathy, and when empathy is there, everything is easier.
Nice, thanks so much. Teresa?
Yeah, I have a question here from somebody called Noor Batel, and it's quite interesting and very relevant for now. It's a question for Farah about theatre. Just let me find it. So do you think that improv theatre, along with playback theatre, can reach out to people facing current conflicts in times of lockdown due to the pandemic? And how can these art forms be a support to those suffering and seeking a refuge while staying at home?
Well, of course. For example, for us at Laban, we've been performing online, and actually performing online opened new doors for us because we were able to reach across the countries. We usually perform in a small room for a very limited amount of people who actually know about us or we know about them. There's a lot of personal connections with people who attend our performances, especially the open performances, especially because Lebanon is a very small country. Beirut is an extremely small city that is barely a neighborhood in any country. So performing online gave us access to everyone, and we could actually reach people that would have never visited the stage, like very marginalized women living in very rural areas. We could access them in their own houses through the network. It also presented a very good support system for people who needed to connect, to speak, and to be heard behind the screens, and for us also to stay alive and to stay in shape and to do what we believe in such horrific times.
Great, thank you. Here, do you have any more questions, or shall I take another one from the audience?
No, absolutely. So I think that my question really is an open-ended question, really for the whole panel, actually. So is there something unique about the kind of art, about maybe art in general, and the kind of art form that you work with specifically, that you really feel that it provides a path for social transformation? So let me translate this as well. C'est juste une question pour tout le panel, en fait. Est-ce que l'art, ou peut-être le forme d'art qui vous avez choisi, est-ce que c'est unique pour te fournir avec un chemin pour la transformation sociale? Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose qui est unique dans cette forme d'art? Y pour traducirlo en español, es una pregunta por todo el grupo. ¿Es que en el arte hay algo de único, de específico, que le fornece un camino hacia la transformación social? Who wants to go first?
Ouais, je peux. Ouais, déjà, moi, je pense que moi, par rapport à mon regard artistique, déjà, voir les robots ou voir des personnages robots, c'était vraiment une influence qu'on en avait prise dans les fictions américaines. Et cette influence a généré tellement dans nos moyens psychiques ou même dans la psychologie visuelle. Et pour moi, créer un personnage qui est inédit, que les gens n'ont pas l'habitude de retrouver en face, c'est déjà quelque chose comme si je faisais une appropriation, comme si j'amenais un personnage nouveau dans ma communauté. Et déjà, ce personnage qui réunit beaucoup de gens ou qui réunit tout le monde autour, pour moi, c'est déjà un personnage que quand même la communauté s'habitue avec, et ça lui permet un peu de garder un regard rationnel. Parce que déjà, à tout moment, on les voit, c'est à tout moment qu'il y a une interpellation. Je peux marcher quand je marche dans la rue, j'essaie un peu d'arrêter des voitures usées. Déjà, ma personnage devant les voitures usées, tout le monde est impliqué. et pour voir, en fait, lui, quand il apparaît, c'est qu'il y a un problème. Donc, c'est comme le regard qu'on avait des Superman, des Batman et des restes, mais sauf que ce n'était pas concret. C'était encore l'illusion, visuelle. Et déjà, le concret nous permet aussi à garder un peu une partie créative qui pourra même, bon, excusez-moi, que moi je considère mon art comme un patrimoine. Parce que déjà, pour moi, je ne peux pas être là aujourd'hui ou après-demain. Quand même, les gens auront cette image de savoir la forme ici avait joué un rôle. Et si on pourrait continuer le même rôle que la forme ici jouait, je pense que ça peut encore générer des générations, plusieurs générations, et de garder encore un regard artistique qui pourrait être nouveau pour les regards innovatifs, quoi.
All right, so I'm going to do my best to translate that beautiful stream of ideas and reflections. So what Precy says is that for him, seeing robots was really an influence from American fiction, but you could only see them on the screen, and it was really fiction. But it really influenced his artistic psychology. And it's something that people so rarely see in front of themselves, a robot, that for him, creating a robot became like creating a new person. And actually, it turned out to be a kind of person that joins a lot of people around him, collects a lot of people. Whenever one sees him, there's something happening. Everyone is implicated. If he appears, actually, there's actually a problem. Just like the Superman or Batman superheroes that you could see on the big screen. If these superheroes appear, there's usually a problem, and it's the same kind of suggestion and a provocation that Precy is after when he makes his own robot out of used car parts to indicate to people they should be aware to collect people around this vague notion, this abstract notion that there is a problem. But for him, it's also a move that he considers, national patrimony. He wants his interventions to kind of play a role that generate generations that have a kind of a new artistic vision of how to go about, how to provoke society and engage with society in a kind of new and provocative way. Can we pass the word to anyone else from the panel?
Okay, can I try? Can I? Okay. I think that we try to influence and develop some quality social relations through general culture as well, and as art is a special part of it. Art certainly has a special language in which it communicates in society and in which all, so to speak, social actors communicate. Today, I think that its use value is measured too much, and too much is calculated. Okay? But art as a sensory truth has value in itself. It is a kind of way in which it is in some ways implemented a sense of community with the world. It still has the power to hold the world together. I think that it's not kind of phrase, but it's deal with some kind of old thinking of craftsmanship, as could be seen at the time of the pandemic quarantine itself, as well as in the current state, so-called post-pandemic. I don't believe it's a weapon or maybe a tool. I believe more that it is a mode of human existence by which the awareness of the beauty is realized, and through that and or which the world is renewed or rebuilt or restored. Precisely because it is connected with a sense of community, healing. It supports the thought process because it has a special plasticity that can heal every kind of trauma, or they can try. It's a special kind of so to say, of ecology without environment, but in any case, it's also an art for nature, and I'm sure for clever societies. Yeah.
I like the reflections. I like them a lot. Teresa, what do you say?
Yeah, no, I think that's what a lot of themes that we've kind of come across in our work at In Place of War, about people sort of reimagining community and that sense of community sort of building through art. So I think, yeah, that really resonates with me, in particular what I've seen through my work in Medellin and the work with Róbinson does as well.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to contribute to that question? Ronald, if you're interested,
I would like to actually add something. I think maybe art is not the only way, but it's definitely the safest way and the most because art is does not have any kind of stigma. There is no space for stigma because anything is creative, and in a creative process, things are safe and are more inclusive, and which is the opposition of what causes any kind of conflict and war. When you are heard, when you are accepted the way you are, and when you are not stigmatized or labeled as the other or as the bad person, you have a voice, and we are here to listen to it, or you have the space to express. You don't need to hold weapons, you don't need to go through war to prove your existence, or to come to life and to be heard and to be witnessed. So this is a very important aspect that only art can provide to the communities. It is also, it plays between two areas that we are in the reality yet not in the reality, and especially for theater, and when we speak about the embodiment. So we're playing, but we are playing with our own bodies and memories, and the memory of our bodies and our experiences, our narrative, our own lives is the only resource we have, but yet this is not very true. So the ability to make mistakes and not to be judged or punished is very wide. So it's a place to experiment instead of going into direct conflict. You always have the ability to cover things or to shape them in a different way. The elasticity of art in itself is very supportive in that direction, and the containment offered by theater, for example, this containment, this feeling of coziness that we are together at one intersection of time and space. Not space anymore. Now we are on Zoom. There is no intersection of space, but at least intersection of time, which is very important. So we create the founding stone of a community, as Ronald just said. So yes, you validate the human experience through art. So they don't need to validate it through war. They are heard without the loud voices, ideally.
Okay, great, thank you. I just want to finish by asking you, Farah, one last question. This is from somebody called Marianne, and she says, in terms of your forum theatre interventions in Lebanon, how does your organisation develop the forum theatre plays and the scenes? Are the communities affected by the issues? Are they directly involved, or are they consulted in the process?
Other what? I didn't hear that.
Sorry, are the communities affected by the issues that you address in your forum theatre and your scenes? Are they directly involved or consulted in the process?
Yes, of course. Every time we try to create a new project or create a new initiative, we involve the community. And as I said before, Lebanon is a very, very small country, so we have access to everything. And because we are very close physically, so you can cross the entire country in less than half a day, it's very easy for us to engage the community. We always have someone from the community. We always partner. We almost never do a full initiative initiative on our own. We always try to partner with experts. If we are talking about women's rights, we partner with organizations that are women-oriented or women-centered or feminist organization. If we are talking about refugees or addressing refugees, we go to the camp. We don't bring them to the theater, so we work in the community, in the field, and we engage the community we are addressing and or we are talking about as much as possible.
Great, thank you. Brilliant answer. Okay, so that concludes our panel discussion for today. I'd like to say thank you to all the panelists for your presentations and for your contributions. And just to lead on from this panel, on the 25th of November at 8 p.m, we have the premiere of a film as part of this Art of Peace project, looking at different art forms in the city of Medellin. So some of Róbinson's work is featured and some of the young people that he works with are featured in that film. So I invite you all to this premiere to attend.
Yeah, so thank you again to everybody. Ronald, Farah, Róbinson, Precy, it's great to have you guys and to be able to listen to you talk about your work in such a enticing way. Thank you to the audience for being here, people from Manchester, but also from all around the world tuning in and joining the discussion. It was great to have you here. And of course, thanks to In Place of War for offering us all this platform to engage. And we hope to see everybody for some of the next sessions that are part of this great event. So thank you, everybody. Have a great evening and hope to see you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.